Hello, my friend. Nice to have you here. Today you will find out what life was really like as a medieval peasant. It's probably different than you imagined. No castles, no glory, just the oppression and subjugation of your lord and much more. So if you love history as much as I do, then sit back, get yourself a warm and nice coffee, and leave your everyday life behind for a moment. And if you have anything on your heart, please let me know in the comments, like, how was your day? Were there any difficulties for you? Was there anything nice for you? So, if you are ready, follow me on our journey. And now, welcome to another world. Congratulations, you just woke up as a medieval peasant, not in your warm bed, not in a cozy curtained bedroom. Instead, you're lying on a cot, perhaps a sack filled with straw that has seen better days, or rather months. Your home? A simple hut, often built of mud, wood, and straw. Your bed isn't a soft pillow paradise, but a hard surface that mercilessly conforms to every contour of your weary body. Perhaps the straw is damp, perhaps it smells of sweat, of animals that spent the night in the same room, and of things you don't care to identify. There are no clean sheets, no fluffy blankets, just a few worn rags covering you in a makeshift way. They're heavy with dirt and feel rough against your skin. You don't sleep in. Your alarm clock? The sun, if it's kind, letting its first timid rays through a small opening, or more likely, the crowing of the rooster, the grunting of the pigs, or the bleating of the sheep that often live wall to wall with you, or in the same room. Privacy? What is that? You share this single space with your entire family, maybe grandparents, children, and yes, the livestock, all in a very small space. Your home isn't just your sleeping place, it's your kitchen, living room, stable, all rolled into one. There are no windows, just small unwashed openings through which little light and plenty of cold air or summer heat filter through. You're never alone. Your family, the livestock, and countless other parasites are your constant companions. The smell, a penetrating mixture of damp earth, old smoke from the open fire in the middle of the room, animal dung, unwashed bodies, and a hint of decay that burrows deep into your lungs and stays there. Room fragrances, not invented. Enough fresh air to Guto breathe. Not that either. You try to stretch, but immediately regret it. The air is often damp and cool, and your joints ache with every movement. You may only be in your mid-20s, but by medieval standards, that could already count as middle-aged. Life expectancy here is much shorter than what you're used to. Your back creaks like an old barn door. Your knees sound like a sack of bones being moved. Getting out of sleep is a bit of a project. The floor is packed earth, often damp and cool, or it's covered with straw and dirt, leftovers from humans and animals. Either way, your bare feet are now one with the floor of your hut. Oh, and private moments, a luxury you've never experienced. Everything is shared. You share the difficult conditions with worms, lice, rats, and your fellow humans and animals. Welcome to morning as a medieval peasant. Here, you are never truly alone. Parasites, rodents, and the presence of difficult situations are always with you. And that's just the beginning of your day. From here on, things often get, well, medieval. You've managed to rise from your sleeping straw. Congratulations. Now nature is calling, and it's not calling quietly. Here begins the part where you create your modern bathroom. There's no toilet, no seat, no toilet paper, no flush, not even a corner loo. Relieving yourself in the 14th century is a public, or at least very pragmatic event. Your toilet is probably the dung heap behind the house. or a secluded corner in the field. Discretion? None. You squat wherever convenient and seem safe enough. If you're lucky, it's dry. If you're unlucky, well, the dung heap is a dung heap for a reason. The smell is strong. You hold your breath. Do your business. And then comes the situation. There's no outlet. It stays there. It builds up. The streets of medieval towns were often open sewers. Your courtyard, your immediate surroundings are too. A collection of human and animal excrement, mixed with everything else that needs to be disposed of. If you're very, very lucky, there might be a latrine in a manor house or castle where you have to work. This is a hole in the wall that directs your waste directly into a ditch or pit. The pit is rarely emptied. Here, you might sit next to strangers. Privacy? None. Ventilation? Minimal. Small talk? Don't even try. Toilet paper? Unknown. Most people wipe themselves with straw, leaves, old scraps of cloth, moss, or, if they're feeling generous, a piece of wool, sometimes nothing at all, which perhaps explains why shaking hands hasn't become very popular yet. And if you're thinking, but it's cleaner in the countryside, isn't it? Well, partly. The fresh air in the field is better than in the dungeon. But the hygiene conditions are similarly rustic. A dungeon is still a dungeon. Disease spreads just as quickly in a village as it does in a city. So, whether you're a peasant or a baron and end up in a dungeon, using the medieval toilet is a process. It's cold, it's public, it can be risky, and it's not pleasant. One wrong step on the dungeon, and you'll land face down in what's left of humanity, and you still haven't brushed your teeth. But we'll get to that next. You survived the toilet. Perhaps you now expect a reward. A nice breakfast. Something warm, good, comforting. Sorry, you're in the Middle Ages. Nothing is comforting. Breakfast, if you can even call it that, is a meagre affair. There are no fancy egg dishes, no coffee machine running, and certainly no modern toast. You're sitting or squatting on the cold, damp ground, in front of a wooden bowl, with something in it that looks like it's been scraped off the floor. Welcome to your daily ration of pottage, if you're lucky. Pottage is a thick porridge or stew, made from whatever is available, grains, root vegetables, maybe some beans if you're very lucky. But as a farmer, pottage is standard fare. Expect bland porridge that doesn't taste of much, or a lump of hard old bread and stale murky water. The food is rarely cooked or prepared as you know it. It's just there. It's often cold. The bread is hard. It could also be used as a missile. It's made from coarse rye or barley flour, often stretched with sawdust, ground acorns or other things, because wheat is for the rich. This bread isn't easy to eat. You don't cut it. You fight with it. And for drinking, you don't drink juice or milk. You drink water. Yes, water. Morning, noon, and night. But not just any water. The water from the village well or the river has parasites and filth. It's old, lukewarm, and smells bad. You drink it anyway because you're thirsty. The water they give you is a liquid that probably won't immediately kills, but will almost certainly lead to health problems later on. Children drink it too. No one is happy about it, but at least it doesn't kill you instantly. Meat or cheese? Dream on. That's rare even for the richest, and only when your overlord is merciful or there's a feast coming up. Most peasants only eat meat when an animal dies or is slaughtered, which doesn't happen often. Fresh fruit? Only when it's in season and hasn't already been made into alcohol. And spices? Forget it. A touch of pepper costs more than your month's wages. Salt is valuable enough to be carefully preserved. So you chew on your coarse bread, gulp down your medieval water, and try not to think about the rat that might have wandered across your food during the night. Breakfast as a medieval peasant doesn't give you much energy. It's just there. And now that you're sparsely fed, it's time to work, because your life depends on it. Which, in fact, it does. So, you've had your poor medieval peasant breakfast, and now it's time to get dressed. Not that that would help much. Your wardrobe consists of exactly 1 or 2 sets. 1. They're made of coarse wool or linen, and you wear them every day for months, possibly years. There's no such thing as changing fashion. The only option is to wear this thing until it falls apart or gives you serious skin problems. Underwear is optional, mostly non-existent. If you're lucky, maybe a pair of linen underpants. But if not, you're naked under layers of rough, sweaty wool, all lovingly stitched together by someone who probably had little idea how to sew. Look, there's also no washing machine, no soap, and absolutely no way to clean these things. So your clothes are stained, stiff, and smell very bad, multiplied by the smell of animal dung, sweat, and decay. Even if you wash them wanted, it would be a huge effort. You would have to fetch water from a river or well, heat it over a fire if you have enough wood, scrub your tunic on a board with ash or lye, and dry it in the sun, which doesn't always shine, and you don't have time for that. Not to mention shoes. If you have any, they're made of raw leather, poorly sewn, and offer little support, more like thin skin. Many farmers simply walk barefoot, through the dirt, through animal waste, over rough ground like sharp stones and diseased areas. All of this means one thing. Your skin is in a miserable state. You're constantly itching. Small insects live freely on your body. Everyone has them. Even if you were a nobleman, as a peasant you're guaranteed to have them. No one escapes it. You'll scratch yourself with a piece of wood under your arm while talking to your neighbour, and no one will seem surprised. Your skin is raw from the rubbing. Your scalp is covered in bites, and if you develop a rash, well, that's difficult. There's no dermatologist, no cream, no one to tell you what it is. You just keep suffering, and if you're lucky, you won't get a serious problem. This rash will simply stay with you for the next 6 months, like an unwanted companion. Now that you're clothed in discomfort and covered in trouble, it's time to go outside and work hard, or more likely face other problems. Now that your teeth are aching and your lungs are feeling unwell, let's talk about the weather. Because in the Middle Ages, the weather wasn't just a topic of conversation, but a constant and often life-threatening challenge. Let's start with winter. There's no insulation, no central heating, and no airtight walls. Only thick walls or mud walls with cracks through which the wind whistles. The small openings that serve as windows let in little light and a lot of cold air. A fire in the hut? A good idea, but wood is expensive and you don't have enough to keep it burning constantly. So you sit in the cold, wrapped in your only, often damp woolen tunic, huddled against the dying warmth of your own body, and still wake up with a cold nose. Your feet are constantly cold and often wet. Your fingers are so stiff they feel like frozen sausages. Frostbite. Who diagnoses that? It's just bad luck. Okay, let's switch to summer. Sounds better, right? Wrong. In summer, your hut becomes an oven, a stuffy, humid place. There's no fan, no airflow, and absolutely no way to avoid body odor. You sweat through your layers of clothing, but you can't take them off because showing too much skin is considered inappropriate. The flies are there in large numbers, attracted to your unwashed body, the animals, and the leftover food. Mosquitoes buzz around your ears while you try to sleep. That's if you can sleep through the sounds of your family, the animals, and maybe the neighbours. Out in the field, the sun beats down on you mercilessly. No sunscreen, no hat unless you've woven one out of straw, which hardly helps. And worst of all, you still have to work. Sunstroke is simply dismissed as a bad attack. So you're either freezing and wondering if your toes will survive spring, or you're sweating in your only outfit while your thighs are being rubbed raw. And the one thing that never changes no matter the season, your clothes are uncomfortable, your food is meagre, if you get any at all, and your next problem is already waiting. Welcome to temperature control, medieval farmhouse style. There is none. After your teeth hurt and your lungs feel uncomfortable, it is time to start with the main task, to escape the medieval peasant life work. Except there's no office, no desk, no break, and no chance of a promotion. Your task is simple. Survive while toiling for the comfort of your overlord, not your own pleasure. You're a peasant. Congratulations. That means your life more or less belongs to your overlord, who probably can't remember your name. You don't rise with the sunrise. You're outside when the sun rises, and your work only ends when you collapse or darkness falls. Your tools are your own body and rudimentary equipment. There are no weekends. There are no quits. There is only work from dark to dark, 7 days a week. One day is off, the day you die. But only when you're not being bullied, dying of an infection, or hoping your sore toe doesn't get gangrenous. The work is hard. It's field work. Heavy, physically demanding. You toil in the sun, in the rain, in the mud. You plough, sow, reap. With simple tools that ruin your back and your hands. No one asks if you're tired. No one asks how your mental state is. If you're a woman, consider the situation. You don't just toil in the fields. You also give birth to children, often in the same room as the animals. Take care of the household, which means cooking over an open fire, fetching water, etc., and perhaps carry eggs or vegetables to the market. Children help as soon as they can walk, often from the age of 5. No school, no toys, just a small tool, and the hope of not dying of an illness one day. And if you are one of the few, and if you're a farmer, perhaps a blacksmith, tanner, or cooper in the village, well, your life too is hard work, dependent on demand and dues to the Lord. The payment, having enough food to survive and a roof over your head. The benefits, the occasional bloodletting, a broken bone, a difficult situation. Got a fever? Drink some lukewarm water, the cloudy stuff, and carry on. You can't afford to stop for even a day, because if you don't toil, you'll soon have nothing. And if you have nothing at all, well, medieval Europe had a way of dealing with that. It means you'll be replaced, so you cling to life, ignore the blisters and the pain, and carry on. Because in the Middle Ages, your life as a farmer isn't a job. It's a long, relentless test of survival. Thirsty? Need a refreshing drink? Splash some water on your face to wake you up from this difficult state of being? Tough luck. In medieval life, water isn't safe. It's trying to quietly cause you trouble. Let's start with drinking. The nearby river may look fresh, flowing, and clear, like something out of a story, but it isn't. Further upstream, someone just dumped their waste in it. And if not that, they're probably a dead animal rotting in there. Parasites, bacteria, and all sorts of tiny creatures await you in every sip. For this reason, people drank beer. Yes, beer, even children. But before you picture medieval children drinking strong beer, it was thin beer, low in alcohol but helpful for survival. Boiling the water to brew it made it safer than anything that flowed through the village stream. Wine was another option if you were rich enough to afford it and weren't afraid of being half sober before midday. But as a peasant, you rarely have those options. Your water comes from the village well or the nearest river, often the dirtiest, least clean place nearby. It's stale, lukewarm, and you can see things swimming in it. It tastes of earth, mould, and decay. You drink it anyway, because thirst is a powerful problem, greater than the fear of disease. Every sip is a risk, a bet with your life. And bathing? Surely water was used for cleansing? Theoretically, yes, but practically, absolutely not. Back then, it was believed that bathing opened the pores and allowed disease to enter. True, washing yourself was considered a health risk. Apparently you were cleaner if you never removed the layer of dirt that clung to your skin. Public bathhouses existed, but they quickly gained a reputation as places for gossip, problems, and sometimes other activities. The church, of course, intervened and closed many of them. But as a farmer, these worries aren't your main concerns. Even if you bathe wanted, it would be a huge hassle. You'd have to fetch water from a well, heat it over a fire if you had enough wood, find a container, and hope no one in the house used it before or worse, after. In your hut there are no clean containers, no constant fire, and no clean water in sufficient quantities. Your only option is to collect rainwater if it leaks through a leak in the roof, or to wash your hands in a puddle in the yard. Rainwater is collected in open containers where birds defecate, insects live, and moss grows. Sounds pleasant, doesn't it? So whether it goes into your mouth, onto your body, or onto your fields, water in the Middle Ages was less a source of life and more a gamble. One wrong sip, and you'd spend your last days sweating on a bed of straw, holding your stomach and contemplating your life choices. This was especially true of peasant life. The lack of cleanliness, the contaminated water, the cramped conditions, they create a breeding ground for disease. You can't escape it. You can't truly cleanse yourself. The filth settles under your fingernails, into every patch of skin, into every open wound. It becomes like a second skin. This constant state of uncleanliness is not only physically difficult but also mentally challenging. It robs you of your sense of dignity. It transforms you into an animal-like state. The memory of clean skin, of fresh water, of simply sipping without fear of illness becomes a distant, difficult memory. It's a constant battle against decay, a battle you can't win. Every scratch, every tiny wound is a potential cause of a problem. The filth that accumulates contains bacteria just waiting to invade your body. Your clothes, which you can't change or wash, become home to insects that feed on your blood and spread disease. And even if you try to cleanse yourself with the little dirty water available to you, you're probably only making things worse. The smell of your body becomes difficult to bear, not only for others, but also for yourself. It's a smell of difficult conditions, decay, and a lack of hope. Next time you drink tap water, think of our ancestors. They didn't have the simple act of drinking without risk. You drank the water. Or maybe not. Maybe you just stubbed your toe on a rock which caused a problem. Either way, you're sick. You need help. You need a doctor. Difficult situation. You live in the Middle Ages where medicine is really just difficult treatment, with a study of religion. Let's start with the diagnosis. Everything that ails you, be it a cough, a rash, a broken bone, or widespread illness, is caused by an imbalance of your humours. The 4 humours were blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. According to medieval understanding, your health depended on keeping these humours in balance, like a kind of internal mixture. Do you have a fever? Too much blood? The answer: bloodletting. Right. Let's remove some of your blood into a bowl with a tool or a leech. And yes, it was often barber surgeons who did this. Imagine getting a haircut and some blood drawn, all in one visit. 2 for the price of 1. Are you feeling sad or worried? That's clearly too much black bile. The treatment? a laxative, maybe a warm herbal rinse, or simply prayers and a cold cloth while everyone avoids looking and starts preparing for your end. If you break a bone or get a wound, you're really in trouble. There are no painkillers, unless you count passing out from the pain. Surgeries are performed with knives that haven't been cleaned in a long time. Tools are heated over fire, not for cleanliness, but simply because they look more respectable. Modern medicine is centuries away. The idea of germs is still unknown. It's believed that illness comes from bad air or from God being displeased with you. Do you have a stomach ache? Those must have been your thoughts. You may have to go to confession while you vomit. If your condition worsens, you'll be treated with more leeches, possibly some crushed insects, and a cleric to perform the last rites just in case. At that point, they prepare for the healing process known as death. And if you recover, everyone just assumes God helped you. The person who treated you takes full credit, and the leech is considered successful. So yes, in the Middle Ages, medicine was less about getting better than about surviving the treatment. All of this applies to the free life outside the hut. But as a poor peasant, you often don't even have access to a barber or healer. You're completely at the mercy of fate, chance, and your own body. A broken bone, it won't heal properly or lead to death through infection. A wound, it will fester, and fever will slowly take over. The diseases rife in the village, dysentery, typhus, smallpox, the plague, cannot be cured. They are a path to death. If you fall ill, there is no one who can truly care for you. Your family is too busy working in the fields to care for you, or too weak themselves to help. The neighbours take care of themselves. You are alone with your pain, with your illness. The symptoms worsen, your body weakens, and death slowly approaches. There is no relief, no hope. The air is filled with the sounds of the sick, the sounds of the dying, and the smell of disease and decay. Every day as a farmer is a time with the possibility of death, and if you get sick, it's often only a matter of time until the end comes. The chances of dying from a simple cold, an infection, or a stomach bug are much higher than you can imagine. Because in your life as a farmer, every illness is potentially fatal, and there's no help, no treatment, no hope. You're at the mercy of the germs that live in your damp, often dirty environment, and your body simply isn't designed to endure these conditions for long. So you've survived the morning, the smell and the first meager meal behind you. Now the real day begins, and that, like everything else, doesn't belong to you. It belongs to your Lord. Your life as a farmer is essentially a permanent lease, for which you pay not only with money, which you barely have, but primarily with your labour and a portion of your harvest. Modern taxes? That's a friendly joke compared to the dues you're asked to pay. You owe labour on the Lord's land, often at the very time when you should be tending your own field. This corvée is mandatory and brooks no delay. Your own field, which is meant to feed your family, comes second. And it's not just work. You owe dues. A portion of your harvest, grain, vegetables, eggs, maybe a chicken, must be delivered to the feudal lord. This is the ground why you toil, so someone else can make a living. How much? It depends on the liege lord, the weather, and how greedy his bailiff is at the time. There are no fixed rules that can be found anywhere. It's more like, give me what I want or there'll be trouble. The bailiff, the liege lord's overseer, is often the one who deals with you directly. He's your boss, your judge of first instance, and sometimes your executioner for minor offences. One wrong word, too slow a pace in the corvée, an alleged offence while gathering wood in the liege lord's forest, and you're standing before him. Punishments can range from beatings and fines, which you can't afford and which will drive you even deeper into dependence, to the loss of your land or even physical mutilation. Right? There is. But it is the right of the Lord. Your opinion counts little to nothing. You're tied to the soil, unfree. Relocate? Only with the Lord's permission, which is rarely granted because you are a valuable resource. Labour. Your family, your children, they're also part of this system. Your sons will be peasants, your daughters peasant women, tied to the same place, the same Lord. The idea of social advancement or a better life elsewhere, a distant, unrealistic dream. Your job is to work, pay, and keep your mouth shut. The liege lord lives in his castle or manor far from your filth and toil, but his power extends into your hut. He controls who marries, who inherits the land, or whether he simply confiscates it, and he profits from your labour. Your life is not determined by you, but by the annual harvest, the weather, and the demands of the liege lord. It's a life of constant observation and dependence. The freedom to make decisions about your own life is a luxury you don't know. You're a cog in a vast machine designed to feed the upper classes, and your only hope is that the liege lord isn't too cruel and that the weather cooperates. Because a bad year not only means less food for you, but also fewer tributes, and that makes the liege lord and his bailiff unhappy, and that's something you want to avoid. Absolutely. Life as a farmer isn't all hard work and paying taxes, it's also village life. Your universe is small. Your village is the centre of your world, surrounded by the fields you till and perhaps a forest or a river. Most of the people you will ever meet live in this village, or the immediate neighbouring villages. Your social world is close-knit and tightly knit. Everyone knows everyone, or thinks they know everyone. This can be helpful when it comes to shared work or mutual support, but it also means that gossip is your constant companion. Rumours spread faster than an epidemic, and a bad reputation can make your life very difficult. The most important place in the village, aside from your own farm and the fields, is probably the church. It's not just a place for worship, if a priest is present, but also a social gathering place. Here, you hear the news, meet your neighbours, and perhaps important announcements are made by the liege lord or priest. But the church also demands its share, the tithe. Another portion of your harvest goes to the church, so you're not just working for the liege lord, but also for the salvation of your soul, or at least for the institution that administers it. Entertainment, a rare treat. There might be feasts for religious occasions or after the harvest. Then there might be dancing. There's hopefully plenty to eat and something better to drink than the murky water. These moments are highlights, but they're rare. Otherwise, entertainment consists of storytelling around the fire, songs, often religious or about work, and observing village life. There are no books, you probably can't read anyway. No games in the modern sense, no theatre. Your world is the reality around you. The seasons determine life. In spring there is hope and sowing. In summer there is the burning sun and the fear of drought or storm. In autumn there is the harvest, the decisive moment that can mean the difference between life and death. And in winter there is the cold, the boredom, the constant worry about whether supplies will last. Each day has its rhythm, determined by farming and responsibilities. Rise before sunrise, work until dark, eat, sleep. Tomorrow, the same thing. There's little room for spontaneity or individual desires. Your life is predetermined by your status and the need to survive. The outside world? A vague idea. News travels slowly and is often distorted. What happens in the next town, or even in a distant kingdom, is mostly irrelevant to your daily survival. Wars, political intrigues. These are things that only directly impact your life if they reach your village and affect you or your family. Otherwise, you live in your little bubble, bordered by the surrounding fields and forests. It's a life without the noise of the modern world, but also without its opportunities and information. A life in which your neighbour is simultaneously your closest ally and potential rival, and in which the church and the liege lord are the only powers above you. So you've become accustomed to the dirt, the smell, the hard work, and the constant dependence. You live in the rhythm of nature, always worried about the next harvest. And this is precisely where one of the greatest and cruelest realities of your life as a medieval peasant lurks. Famine. A bad year. Too wet, too dry. Pests. A plague that wipes out the livestock, or simply the greed of the lord who takes too much. And suddenly, the supplies are insufficient. Modern supermarkets, full warehouses, that's science fiction. Your supplies are what you've been able to grow and harvest yourself, plus a few animals you might slaughter. When the harvest is poor, it doesn't mean less choice, it means less food. Period. First, bread is rationed, the porridge thins, then you eat roots, grasses, whatever you can find that's somehow edible. Hunger is a nagging, constant pain that settles in your belly. It weakens you, makes you vulnerable to disease. It changes how you think, how you act. Despair sets in. Children and the elderly are affected first. You see your children's cheeks hollow, their bellies swell, while their limbs grow thin. There's nothing you can do. Nothing. Beg? Maybe in another village, but they're often just as affected. Steal? The risk is immense, the punishment cruel, and what's to be gained? Many give up. The fight against hunger is a battle you can't always win. It's not a quick death often. It's a slow decline, a loss of strength until the body simply gives up. Death is a constant companion in your life, and not just from hunger. A simple cold can turn into fatal pneumonia. A small cut from working with a sickle becomes infected and leads to sepsis. An upset stomach from contaminated water turns into fatal dysentery. There are no antibiotics, no IV fluids, no painkillers that really help. You lie in the straw, feverish, writhing in pain, while your family watches helplessly. A healer in the village might offer herbs, say a prayer, but often that's all. The average life expectancy of 30 to 40 years is deceptive. It's significantly reduced by high infant mortality. If you survive the first 5 years, you have a better chance. But even then, living to 50 is still remarkable. Your body is worn down early from hard work. Your teeth decay. Your joints are chronically aching. You're constantly vulnerable. Death often comes uneventfully. There's no grand finale. You simply don't wake up. Or you become too weak in the winter and freeze to death. And funerals? Often pragmatic. Quick, to avoid the spread of disease. A cloth, a prayer from the priest, a grave in the church cemetery if there's room. Your name might be recorded in the parish register if there is one. But in the grand scheme of things, your death is a minor event in the village. Another peasant to be replaced. Your life has been a constant struggle for survival, a chain of hardship and uncertainty, under the constant threat of disease, hunger, and the whims of the liege lord. And at the end, death awaits, not as a dramatic ending, but as another unavoidable fact of medieval peasant life. So you've become accustomed to the constant threat of hunger, disease, and an unpleasant death. If earthly life is such a relentless struggle, where do you look? For most of your fellow human beings, and for you too, it's heaven or hell. Religion isn't just a Sunday hobby, it's the pillar of your existence. It offers the only explanation for all the suffering and the only hope for a better future. even if that future only comes after death. The priest in the village is often one of the few educated people in the bridge to the spiritual world. His sermons are full of warnings about sin, about the devil who lurks everywhere, and about the eternal damnation that clearly sounds worse than your current life. A remarkable achievement of medieval theology. You know the most important prayers. Perhaps you have a few saints you pray to in particular, depending on what you fear most at the moment. A good harvest, protection from illness, surviving childbirth. The church, with its rituals, mass, the sacraments, the holidays, structures time in the village, away from the endless rhythm of work. It offers a moment of community, a sense of belonging to something greater. Sometimes, when the singing in church is particularly powerful, or the priest speaks of God's grace, you feel for a brief moment a hint of comfort, a tiny relief from the constant fear. But even faith isn't easy. You live in a world full of superstitions. A crow croaking, a spilled salt. These can be bad omens. You might wear an amulet for protection or secretly cast curses when someone angers you. Good and evil are very real and very close. The church also collects tithes, so you pay for your soul's salvation just as much as for your earthly existence. And when you sin, which happens quickly in this life, whether through envy, anger, or simply the desire for a piece of meat, you fear confession and penance, because the idea of hell has been vividly portrayed and painted in great detail. So your spiritual journey is as much a struggle for survival as your physical existence. You cling to the hope of heaven while trying to avoid falling into the abyss of damnation. It's a fine line you balance on every day, but this constant fear of punishment and the hope of redemption aren't the only things that drive you. There are also the people around you. So there you have it, your day, your life as a medieval peasant. No comfort, no security, constant toil, filth, hunger, the ever-lurking threat of disease, the arbitrary will of the Lord, the confines of the village. Your goal wasn't happiness or success in the modern sense. Your goal was to reach the next day and the day after that. Forget the images of peaceful villages, noble knights, or romantic times. This was the real story. A relaxed story? Well, yes. It certainly wasn't for you. Yet despite all these unimaginable hardships, people found ways to live. They shared small joys, found solace in community and their faith, and demonstrated incredible resilience. Perhaps not constant light-hearted gratitude. That would be asking too much. But a deep, fundamental gratitude for surviving the day, for the warmth of a fire, for the smile of a child. They appreciated the value of pure being in a way that has often been lost to us today. And that is perhaps the most useful lesson from this relaxed story. Amidst our own comparatively minor challenges, not to lose sight of the fundamental things to be grateful for, even if life is, well, medieval.